Hey guys, what's up? J-Chip Show here, doing my very first tier list. Oh yes. Um, I was inspired to do this by MegaDan29's console tier list, as well as Video Game Lovers tier list. They did their videos a while back, so I'm a little late to the party on this, but I thought it was such a really cool idea that I basically wanted to do my own. So here is the consoles I have ready up. I decided to put all the consoles that I've never played in this area here just because, I mean, it'd be a waste of time to skip over them or say what they were because I have no memories with these at all. So let's get to it. Alright, let's get to it, shall we? First up, we have the original Game Boy. I don't have a ton of memories with the original Game Boy as I do with other Nintendo handhelds, but from what I played of the Game Boy, I did enjoy it. It's big, it's bulky, but it is pretty comfortable, I do gotta say. And while I haven't played much on the system, I did play a little bit here and there. Obviously, the best ones probably being the Pokemon games. Pokemon Red and Blue, classic games, still fun to this day. And Gen 1's one of the best gens. It's a great gen. And it all started on Game Boy. You also have the Super Mario Land games on here. Pretty fun games. Haven't beaten them, but from what I played of them, they're pretty fun. Now, from my experience though, I'm probably going to put it in, C tier, seems fine. I just don't have a lot of memories with this system or played it that much, but from what I did play, I did enjoy. So if I ever do get a Game Boy again, I'm pretty sure I will explore its pretty big library. Next up, we have Gamecube. Gamecube is pretty nostalgic for me. I remember having it as a kid and just playing so much of it. Obviously, you got some really cool Mario games. Mario Sunshine's pretty solid. Mario Party 4 is probably my favorite Mario Party of all time. It had some pretty mature games on there, especially for a Nintendo console. You had the True Crime games, which I played. Metal Gear Solid Twin Snake, remake of the Metal Gear Solid game. Resident Evil 4 made its debut on this system. Now, granted, I didn't play Resident Evil 4 on the GameCube until PlayStation, but it started on the GameCube, and I thought it was pretty cool. It's got a really cool design. The controller's awesome. You got F-Zero GX. You got Super Smash Bros. Melee. Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. I know Captain Algebra is cringing, but I like that game. Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, which is probably better on the GameCube than the Wii, but yeah, GameCube was a pretty awesome system. And I'm actually going to put it in A tier. And also, GameCube has probably one of my favorite gaming memories. When I had the system, I had Medal of Honor Rising Sun. And I remember my mom and my stepdad at the time playing the game. And there was one time on a school night, my mom and my stepdad were so addicted to Medal of Honor Rising Sun that they were playing it in my room. And it was my bedtime, so I was like, what the hell, man? So I went to watch Raw in the living room while they were playing their games. But it was a really cool memory. Next up, we got PS2. And, we're just going to cut through the bullshit and put this shit right in S tier. I mean, PS2 is tied with another system on this list to be my favorite video game console of all time. The PS2 was so dope, and it's still dope to this day. I still find games to this day that I've never played. I think they're pretty badass. Like, I got K, Legend of Darkness. That's a 3D platformer, and the game's dope. The game's awesome. It's fun. But I think the best thing about the PS2, straight up, is the library. I mean, you got the big three on here: Sly Cooper, Jak and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank. All of them are excellent. All of them are awesome. And we're still getting Ratchet and Clank games today, so that started on the PS2 and it's still successful. You got God of War 1 and 2. I've only played the first one. I do have the second one, and I'm playing that now, and it is such a badass game. And it started on the PS2. I'm a huge RPG fan, and the PS2 has a ton of great RPGs, from the Shin Megami Tensei games, Persona, Final Fantasy X, 10-2, yes, I like 10-2, and Final Fantasy 12. Good games on the PS2. Valkyrie Profile 2 is awesome. Radios Story is pretty good. Rogue Galaxy. There's a ton of really good RPGs on the PS2. I played Call of Duty for the first time on the PS2 with Call of Duty Big Red 1, and I beat that game as a kid, and I thought it was excellent. Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3, especially 3. Metal Gear Solid 3 is one of my favorite games of all time, and it's on the PS2. Oh, and if we're going to talk about the PS2, we gotta talk about the wrestling games. The SmackDown Just Bring It was the first SmackDown game to be on the PS2. Obviously, the SmackDown series started on the PS1, but in my opinion, that franchise would get so much better on the PS2. Shut Your Mouth. Here Comes the Pain, which is still talked about and played to this very day. In my opinion, Here Comes the Pain is probably the greatest wrestling game of all time. There is a reason why that game demands a high price tag, is because everyone who's played it said it's really good. It's got a great roster, a great career mode, and it's overall just a really fun game. And another thing that was so awesome about the PS2 is that it was a DVD player. It was the cheapest DVD player of its release, and it was my first in my bedroom DVD player, and I watched a ton of wrestling DVDs on that system, a ton of Harry Potter movies and Star Wars movies. It was a great time to be a kid with the PS2. I could go on forever, but PS2 is straight up S tier. Up next, we got the Sega Genesis. And, Sega Genesis is pretty freaking sweet. I had one a few years ago, and I got a bunch of games for it, and the one game that sticks out the most for me is Rocket Knight Adventures. That game is really tough, and I was really proud of myself to just not give up and finally beat that game. It's such an awesome game, and I love it so much. There's a ton of other games on here that are awesome. I mean, you got the Sonic trilogy, as well as Sonic and Knuckles. You got Phantasy Star 2, 3, and 4. I really like Phantasy Star 4. You got Ristar, Vector Man, Contra Hard Corps, the Streets of Rage series, which I've got to say, I think the Streets of Rage series is easily the best beat-em-up series ever. You can take your Double Dragons, you can take your Final Fights. I'll take Streets of Rage, and I'll have a great time, especially Streets of Rage 2. That is an awesome Genesis game. My only real complaint with the Genesis is that, the controller is a bit too wide and a bit bulky for my taste. And sometimes, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but putting the cartridge in the system just felt a bit too tight. It's not bad, but it was kind of whatever. But I think I'm gonna put the Genesis. Let's put it in A tier, because when I had it, I had a lot of fun with it, and there's a ton of great games on there, and there's a ton of games I haven't even played on the system that are considered classics. And someday I would like to play those games, but from what I played, I've had a great time. Up next, we got the PS3. The thing with the PS3 for me is that I was kind of late to the party with the PS3 during its generation. I was always a 360 fan, and during that generation, I was just balls deep into 360. I loved playing the Xbox. And I did play the PS3 here and there a few times during its lifespan, but I was mainly only an Xbox guy. However, after its lifespan, when the PS4 just came out, I got my PS3. When I started it, I could not put it down. There was just a ton of really cool games, and it was my first Blu-ray player that was in my room. Blu-rays are awesome, and the PS3 was my first experience with Blu-rays. You got the Uncharted series, which I'm going through and reviewing those, and that just reminds me of me playing those games on the PS3, and they're fantastic. I played Dead Space 2 on the system. I had a copy of GTA 5, and me and my friend from high school used to play online all the time, pretty much every single night. I guess the only thing negative I have to say with the PS3, I'm not a fan of the trigger buttons on the controller. They just feel very mushy, and I don't know, they just feel kind of awkward. Also, this is just a me thing, but when I'm playing like third-party games on the system, I don't really get into them. Now, granted, there were exceptions like GTA 5. I had it for both systems, but the only reason why I was playing it on that was because I was playing it with my friend. And I don't know, if I played it on the Xbox, I probably wasn't really going to play it much on the PS3. So, that being said, I think I'm going to put the PS3 in B tier. It's a pretty cool console, and there's a ton of really cool games on the system for sure. And I think if I were to ever get a PS3 again, it would just be my go-to for picking up PS1 games that are way too expensive physically. Like, Klonoa on the PS1 is my most wanted video game ever, and that game goes for like $200, and there's no way in hell I'm paying that price. But I'll pay $5 on the PSN store and enjoy through there. So, yeah, that's my only reason for wanting a PS3 now. But as of right now, I'll be okay if I wait. Up next, we got the Super Nintendo, and the Super Nintendo to me is a pretty nostalgic system. I remember playing it with my aunt and my sister. We would play Super Mario World, and that was a pretty interesting experience because I was used to just 3D Mario. I never really played any 2D Mario, and when I saw Super Mario World for the first time, I was kind of in shock that it looked so different. And it was an interesting time, and here and there as a kid I would dabble with the Super Nintendo, playing mainly Super Mario World. It isn't until I got older when I discovered Donkey Kong Country, Doom, Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past. I still haven't beaten that game, but I did play it for a while, and I do enjoy it. Mega Man X, and as a huge RPG fan, this is kind of where Final Fantasy got its big start. Final Fantasy IV definitely built the groundworks and basically made the blueprint of what a lot of Final Fantasy games came after. It had a really in-depth storyline. It was unique for the time. And here in America, it was called Final Fantasy II, as a lot of you know. But then you got Final Fantasy VI, which Final Fantasy III in America, and that just does it even better. Like, Final Fantasy VI is my favorite 16-bit RPG of all time, and it's on the Super Nintendo. As of right now, I don't have one currently. If I did, I would be collecting for it for sure. But with the quality of the games that I've played, and there's just so many more that I want to play. Like, I want to play Earthbound. I know it's expensive, but I do want to play that game. I want to play Illusion of Gaia, Demon's Crest, Dracula X, Mega Man X 2 and 3. And granted, I could play a lot of those games on different systems, but I don't know. When it comes to Super Nintendo, it just feels right playing on the original console with that awesome controller. The one bad thing I will say about the Super Nintendo is that Super Metroid sucks ass. Anyways, I'm going to put this up in A tier. Up next, we have the Nintendo Switch. I know it's kind of hard to tell, but that is the thick black border around the Nintendo Switch screen. I really like the Switch. I think the idea of taking out of the dock to play portably or on my TV screen is a really cool idea. And I know technically the Vita started with it, but the Switch definitely popularized it. Also, I really love the Pro Controller. It's one of the most comfortable controllers I've ever had in my hands, and it feels right. I'm not a big fan of the Joy-Cons by themselves. I mean, they work, they're fine, but like, give me the Pro Controller all day long. And that's kind of why I don't play this thing portably, is because I prefer to play it docked on my big ass TV. They don't have the Nintendo Switch Lite on here, and the Nintendo Switch Lite does have better feeling buttons than the actual Joy-Cons themselves, but the actual Joy-Cons themselves on the regular Nintendo Switch just don't feel that great. Also, Joy-Con drift is annoying as hell. I know every controller eventually drifts at one point, but goddamn does the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons drift the most. And it feels like it's the most easiest thing to do and to mess up is your Joy-Cons. But enough complaining about the hardware. There are a ton of really good games on the Nintendo Switch. For starters, you got Breath of the Wild, which is one of the coolest and most fascinating open world game of all time. I could see the argument of people saying it's not a good Zelda game, but it is a good open world game, and I really like it. You got Mario Odyssey, which I haven't beaten yet, but from what I played, I've had a lot of fun with it. Metroid Dread. If you know me, I can't stand Metroid, but seeing Gaming Off the Grid stream Metroid Dread actually made me consider picking it up. And I haven't picked it up yet, but maybe someday I'll check it out. And you don't only get just Breath of the Wild for Zelda, you also get the remake for Link's Awakening. You also get Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, which is a really cool game. I only played the demo of that, but it was really fun. And you also get the Skyward Sword HD remaster, which that threw me off guard. I didn't expect that out of any Zelda game to get an HD treatment. Now, if only Nintendo can port the Zelda games on the Wii U with Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD to the Switch, that would be pretty fucking banger. Of course, you got your Smash, you got your Mario Karts, and those are awesome. I really like Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U, but I think it's just done better on the Switch thanks to the better battle mode. And having all the maps is pretty convenient, and it's a really fun game with me and my family. We play that game all the time. So overall, I do really like the Switch. Another big problem I have to say with the Switch is that it is goddamn expensive. I don't know why Nintendo has this thing of never dropping their prices for modern games, but I don't know. It makes collecting for the Switch kind of a pain in the ass because you still see games at launch that would still go for $60. Granted, Breath of the Wild recently went from 60 to like 40, but for a long time that was still sitting at a $60 price tag, and it was unforgiving. I also don't understand the limited release strategy that Nintendo has had with their modern games. Like, what's the point of making a game like Super Mario Bros. 35 and put it up for free to play and just take it completely away? Like, that was a really fun game. Why take it away? I just don't understand. And you had Mario 3D All-Stars, which had a limited print run. It was, well, not limited print run, but they were stopped production pretty early on. And while you still can find brand new copies of that game at Walmart or Target, at least in my area, I just don't understand why you would stop making that. People want to play these games, and I think, people should still get the opportunity to get those games. Like, I wanted to play the first Fire Emblem game that was released on the NES. They were putting that on the Switch, but, fuck me, I was too late to the party on that, and I can't get the game unless I want to pay a lot of money for the special edition, which I don't even think that code could even work. I don't think, but, fuck me, right? That being said, I think I'm going to put the Switch in B tier. I do like the system a whole lot, but I don't like it enough to where I feel comfortable putting on A, especially when it does have some pretty big problems for me, especially. But regardless, the positives still outweigh the negatives, in my opinion. Up next, you got the Nintendo DS as well as the 3DS. I'm kind of going to jump these two together because, in my opinion, they're almost the same, minus this being a little bit more powerful than this. But I remember when the DS came out being pretty mind blown that it had a touchscreen. Yeah, that actually shocked me back as a kid that, you can touch the screen and it'll work. I was like, oh my god, this is like some Star Wars shit. And I don't know why, but the folding thing, like, I thought that was so cool. Granted, it was on the SP, but like it was a little bit wider, so like it kind of felt like a laptop. And then it had the stylus pen, which I thought was kind of cool. But I didn't get a DS until I was in middle school, right before the 3DS was about to come out. It was kind of towards the end of its lifespan when the DSi came out, and I had the regular DS Lite. And the first game I ever had for the DS was New Super Mario Bros. And I played the fuck out of that game. I would bring it to school, I would play on the bus. During lunchtime, me and my friends would pass the DS back and forth to see who would get the farthest without dying. We loved that game, and I got a few other games too. I got Mario Kart DS, which was a really fun game. I also really liked that the DS was backwards compatible with the GBA games. That made things really convenient for me because I loved the GBA and I didn't want to give up the Yu-Gi-Oh game I had. I still wanted to play that, so I was really happy that it was on the DS. I never really fucked around with the DSi. My only experience with the original DS was through the DS Lite, and to me that is the best DS ever. Sure, yeah, you got the DSi XL with a really big screen, but they take away the GBA, and that's kind of the main reason why I really like the DS. Now, of course, the system is cool, but it's also got a really awesome library of video games. If you're a big fan of Pokemon, this is probably the best handheld with the best Pokemon games. I mean, you got Diamond and Pearl, Platinum, which is my favorite of the 4th gen, and I hope that one also gets remade. You got Soul Silver and Heart Gold. Awesome, awesome games. You got Black and White 1 and 2, and Gen 5 gets a mixed reception, but for competitive players, it was a really awesome game, and I really like Black and White 2. RPGs, you got Final Fantasy 3, which was the first time that game ever was brought to America with its 3D remake. You also got a 3D remake of Final Fantasy 4, and that game is hard as balls. It's awesome because you get awesome voice acting and it's all in 3D, but god damn is that game hard, but it's still really good. Yeah, there's a lot of really good things I can say about the DS. I'm gonna put it up in A tier, just because I think it's a really cool handheld, and I think even to this day it's still worth picking up, just because it is a Game Boy and it's also a DS, and sure, yeah, you can play all your regular DS games on the 3DS. It still has the added benefit of being a Game Boy, and also having that library of DS games is just fascinating. Now, that being said, I kind of am going to put the 3DS also in A tier. Just because, one, it can play all DS games, and that's awesome. And two, it's... When I saw Resident Evil Revelations, Resident Evil Revelatons, if you know that reference, you know what I'm saying, but yeah. When I saw that on the 3DS, I was like, my god, they actually put like a 360 type game onto a DS, and that was mind-blowing. Also had the Virtual Console, and this was my first time actually playing through Zelda, the first Zelda game ever. I played it on the 3DS, and that's how I beat the original game, was through the 3DS. I also got a ton of other stuff off that Virtual Console. Then they also made the new 3DS, and the new 3DS XL is probably the way to go if you want a 3DS. It has a little nipple to act as the C stick. The screens are bigger, and it is like night and day. Once you have like the regular DS and then you compare it to the bigger 3DS XL, like, it is massive. And just like the original DS, the 3DS has a fuck ton of awesome games. You got the Pokemon X and Y, which are pretty good. You got Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. You also got Sun and Moon, Ultra Sun and Moon. Super Mario 3D Land is pretty dope. And you got the 3D ports of Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, which are really awesome. And it's refreshing to play those games in a newer format. I really love the DS lineup, and it's kind of a shame that they're gone now, but you know, the DS was such an awesome experience, and it's a legacy I'll never forget. And you know, I do miss the DS, and I love the Switch, but the DS is like top tier for Nintendo handhelds for me. Up next, we got the Xbox line of consoles. I'm just gonna start with the original and then move on to the Xbox One. Yeah, man, the original Xbox was pretty hype when I was a kid. I remember seeing commercials for Halo 2, and that just being mind-blowing. Keep in mind, during that time, I was only used to N64 video games. And, I mean, I played the PS2 here and there, but the N64 was the only system I had at the time. And seeing Halo 2 on the commercial just, like, blew my mind. I was just like, holy shit. This is like 007 GoldenEye, but, like, on steroids. Obviously, I didn't say that as a kid, but you get what I was saying. But the Xbox just blew me away. And the first time I actually got an Xbox was around middle school. So I didn't get an Xbox as a kid, but right around 7th grade or 8th grade, I got one for my birthday or Christmas. I don't remember which one, but we had the 2 Halo games, which is what I really wanted. And I remember me, my sister, my mom, and my dad at the time would get together and play Halo all the time. And it was just kind of the family thing, you know. Sometimes we would play board games. Sometimes we would just play video games if it's fun. So we played Halo all the time. And one morning, I remember getting up, getting ready for school, and I see my mom playing Halo by herself. You know, she was I don't think she cared about the story at all, but she was just playing it so she could get better at the multiplayer against us. And she actually was. She actually did get better. So props to her. Halo 2 is a fantastic game, just as good as Halo 1. I think we played Halo 1 a bit more just because we got used to the maps. I remember one time before we would even fight, we would go around the map just to kind of make it familiar to us. And it was a lot of fun. You got Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2. I remember playing a lot back in the day. Never beat them, but I remember playing them because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. You had the Obi-Wan game, but I never played that. Admittedly, I did have fun with Wwf Raw, which, I mean, playing nowadays it's kind of shit because WWE SmackDown on the PS2 just did it so much better. But the Xbox, or the WWF Raw game was pretty fun. I never played Raw 2. And I remember being really hyped for WrestleMania 21 as well. Yeah, that was a really cool trailer that they posted. And I remember that was my first time actually watching like YouTube videos. It wasn't YouTube videos. It was like, I don't know. I don't even remember. I think it was on IGN. I would just watch the entrances and just be mind blown that the Minitron finally showed video. I mean, it was just the Titantrons, but just seeing that they could play the Minitron was just mind-blowing to me. And the Xbox is awesome, you know. Jade Empire is fantastic. There's a ton of great games on the Xbox. And, you know, a lot of people like the S controller. I really like the Duke controller. I don't know what it is. I think that controller is just a bit more comfortable to me. Like, the S controller is good and all, but I'm always going to be down for using the S controller. I will say one more game about the Xbox before I move on. 007 Knifefire, while that is on all the systems during the 7th generation, in my opinion, it is the best on the Xbox because, you know, you got the 4-player, it looks nice, and that is a really fun game. Way better than GoldenEye, but the Xbox, I think I'm gonna throw that shit in A tier. It's a really awesome system. I really like it a lot. And it's dirt cheap too. Some of the games are just wicked cheap, and you can build a pretty decent Xbox collection right now. Obviously, you're not going to pick up the expensive games like Otage, but you can get a pretty decent library of games if you want to start somewhere. Next up, we have the Xbox 360, and we're going to put it up in S tier. Now, the Xbox 360 was my system when I was in high school. It was the only system I had during the 7th generation. I did not give a shit about the PS3, and I did not give a shit about the Wii at the time. And I dabbled with the Wii here and there. My sister got the Wii, but the 360 was the system that I wanted during the 7th generation, and I got it for my birthday. It was such an awesome moment. My mom actually hid it from me because I knew I was going to get it, but she pulled a prank on me saying, "Oh, we didn't get it," and I was just like, "Oh man," I was so disappointed. And I went up to my room being like, "Man," and then a few minutes later she calls me down and it's sitting right there, and I open it, and the first 3 games I got was Soul Calibur 4, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, and Left 4 Dead 2. The 360, man, that got me through a lot of problems in high school. Dealing with some hard shit in my life and my high school years. A lot of times I would just go home and play some Xbox 360, man. I remember when the Call of Duty games were coming out, I would be picking up them. I got Call of Duty Black Ops 2, and that was an awesome time. Just being able to sit back and just play Call of Duty 2 or Call of Duty Black Ops 2 with my friends, and that was an awesome time. Me and my friends played Xbox all the time after school. We would just boot it up and we would play whatever that was on there. My favorite thing about the Xbox 360, though, was the arcade, Xbox 360 arcade, because there was a ton of really cool games for dirt cheap, and this is the system that I got Minecraft on. I was really big into that, and I played a lot of the new games that were coming out for that system, third party and exclusives. So Halo 4 I got, and I got Halo Reach was just big. Like, I remember getting that and just being blown away. And to this day, Halo Reach and Halo 3 are probably my favorite Halo games, and they're on the 360. One night, actually, I remember this, me and my brother-in-law stayed up all night just to play Halo 3, and we beat it that night. That was a really cool moment. I remember being hyped for a lot of the wrestling games. WW12 was the first wrestling game I got when I got the Xbox 360, and it's a pretty decent game, but I was so hyped for WW2K14, and that is still a really awesome game. WW2K14 is probably the last really good WWE game, and it's all on the 360 and PS3, man. I love the Xbox 360 controller. It is such a comfortable controller. And we'll talk to you about the Xbox One controller, but in my opinion, the 360 has the best Xbox controller ever. I don't know about the best controller ever, but it's definitely up there for me. And I know a lot of people had issues with the Red Ring of Death when the Xbox 360 first started. I never had that issue, and if I did, it would probably be an A tier, but I mean, keep in mind, a lot of this is just my own personal perspective and what happened with me with these systems, and it's all my opinion. But like, I can't think of the Xbox 360 without thinking of those awesome memories I had with the system when it was big at the time. So the 360 means a lot to me, and collecting for it is really cheap right now. There's a ton of games for it that are just like basically nothing. So that's another system I would recommend collecting for. And another thing that blew my mind when I got the Xbox is when we got internet hooked up to the thing and I could watch Netflix on there. I was just like, dude, I can watch Netflix. I can watch YouTube. And yeah, it's a really awesome system. One of the best controllers ever. One of the best libraries ever. I love it, man. The Xbox One. Man, what a disappointment this was. I was so disappointed with the E3 reveal of how they were going to basically have it be online all the time. You couldn't play used games, and it looked like a VCR, and I was just not a fan of when this thing came out. I despise it, and it really hurt because, I wanted the next Xbox when the 8th generation consoles were being revealed, and it broke my heart that, Microsoft made a mistake on that one. But, as much, as bad as that was, I can give credit that they at least bounced back from it. When they started making the Xbox Series S, I think Xbox definitely got a lot better. Also, this may be an unpopular opinion, but I am not a fan of the Xbox One controller in comparison with the 360 controller. In my opinion, the 360 controller basically wipes the floor with the Xbox One controller in every single way. Like, the triggers just feel off, the bumpers just feel weird, the D-pad sucks, and for whatever reason, the thing is loud. Like, it feels like when you're smacking against the rim of the joysticks, it just feels like that was just amplified to like 11. So, in my opinion, it was a massive downgrade in the controller department, but, what can you do? But the thing is with Xbox One for me is that I don't have a lot of memories with it. I played it here and there at friends' houses, and there wasn't a ton of games I played, but for when I did play, I did have fun. But with the rocky start, it left a sour taste in my mouth. But I am going to give it a C because I could see this going up if I had more time with it, if I actually start collecting for it, which maybe I should because, I see these things going for like $200. So, maybe someday I'll get an Xbox One and play some more of the exclusives. Like, I do want to play the Forza series because, man, those games are beautiful. Even if, like, they suck to me, like, those games are gorgeous. The Atari 2600, man, this is probably going to get me in trouble, but the Atari, as much as I respect it and like the legacy of the system, I just can't get into it no matter how much I try. Maybe it's because I'm young, but I don't even like playing it. I don't like the controller. Like, if I ever play Atari, I'm usually going to use a Sega Genesis controller. The system's beautiful with the wood paneling on the front. It just looks super sexy and super 80s, but, like, man, I just can't get into it no matter how much I try. And, that's it. That's fine. Like, it's just not for me. I'd rather play, like, the 5200 because it makes a lot of the games look better, like Pac-Man. But besides that, like, with my experience with Atari, it wasn't really anything that special. I just found myself bored playing it. And, yeah, as much as I respect the legacy of the system, that's pretty much the reason why I'm going to give it a D. Next we have the Nintendo Wii, and I really like the Nintendo Wii. It's such a fun console, and it's so underrated too. In my opinion, the Wii has the best first-party Nintendo games of any Nintendo console ever. You got Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. You got Animal Crossing City Folk. You got Legend of Zelda, Skyward Sword, and Twilight Princess. Sure, that was on the GameCube, but many people like me played it first on the Wii. You got Excite Trucks, a sequel to the awesome Excite Bike on the NES. You got Super Smash Bros. Brawl, which is probably my favorite Smash Bros. Ever. Like, that game is so much fun. And you got other games like Xenoblade Chronicle, Donkey Kong Country Returns, Mario Kart Wii, and of course Wii Sports. Also, as a huge Resident Evil fan, Resident Evil 4 on the Wii is the best version of Resident Evil 4. Now, yeah, there were some problems with the Wii. Motion controls sometimes didn't work even if the sensor was right. And the third-party support wasn't as strong as it was on the 360 and PS3. And of course, it had a ton of shovelware. There are so many Imagine Babies games, or like Cooking Mama, or Just Dance, or there's a bunch of shit on the Wii. And I'm sure they're alright, but like, Nah, man, I can't even step foot near that stuff. But it did introduce the Virtual Console, which I think was an amazing idea. And in fact, the Virtual Console was the first way I played through Mario Bros. 1, 2, and 3. Amazing, amazing stuff. The Wii is a pretty awesome console. There are some major problems with the Wii, and I'm going to have to put it as a B. Up next, we have the NES, that little gray box that saved the gaming industry here in America. And oh boy, what a system. When I think of retro gaming, the NES always comes into mind. It's the classic system. And it's a great system. It's got a ton of great games, and it started a bunch of franchises that are still coming out today. I mean, you got Kirby, Mario, Legend of Zelda, Castlevania. Well, Castlevania's not currently going on, but you get what I mean. Mega Man started on here. Contra started on here. And all those franchises are amazing on the NES. You also got Ninja Gaiden, the Adventure Island series. Blaster Master is awesome. And you got some underrated gems on the system like Yonoid. Yonoid is pretty fucking sweet, not gonna lie. You also have Battle of Olympus, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, or the regular just Punch-Out. You got the Dragon Warrior games, which eventually became Dragon Quest. Metroid is alright, I guess. And there's a ton of games on the NES that are just fun. Now, there is a reason why they call it NES Hard, because, my god, there's a lot of really tough games on the system. Like, you got Battletoads, Contra can be pretty tough, Ninja Gaiden is tough, Adventure Island can be tough, but when you beat an NES game, at least from my perspective, it actually feels like an accomplishment. I don't play the NES too often, but when I do, I'm having a great time. Like right now, currently, I'm playing through Back to the Future on NES. Yes, I know it's an LGN title, but I mean, hey, you should give those LGN games a try. They're not that bad. Who Framed Roger Rabbit, though, that game is bad. That is a terrible LGN game, but Back to the Future is pretty fun, not gonna lie. And I want to play Karate Kid. That does look like a fun game. And also Nightmare on Elm Street's awesome too. There's quite a bit to like on the NES. Now, the problem with the NES, for me at least, is that either console doesn't work or is refurbished. There is quite a few bad games on the NES. Of course, every system has its bad games, but like the really bad NES games like Dash Galaxy are pretty fucking terrible. However, I can forgive it because the NES is a really dope system. I like it a lot. It's classic as hell. Without it, we probably wouldn't be here today talking about games. So, I'm going to put it in B tier. Up next, we have the Sega Dreamcast, Sega's final hurrah. It's an okay system, not going to lie. The games on it were pretty damn cool. It was definitely ahead of its time with the online capability. The big thing with me is that the best games on the Dreamcast are on other systems, and I've played them on other systems. Like Shenmue 1 and 2 I played on the PS4 with the remaster. Sonic Adventure 2 I played on the GameCube. I haven't played Sonic Adventure 1, but there's a ton of games, there's a ton of games that have just been remastered on a better systems. I don't hate the Dreamcast. I'm sure there's a ton of games on there that I would really like. And it does have the best console ports of Resident Evil 2 and 3 just being absolutely gorgeous, and definitely is head-to-head with the PC versions of both of those games. But another thing is, I just don't like the controller. Like, it just feels very uncomfortable with the grips, and the triggers just don't feel that great. The plasticky stick doesn't feel good. The D-pad's pretty bad, and the cord comes from the bottom, which is kind of weird, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Dreamcast controller, but I am a pretty big fan of the UMD. That thing is just adorable. I love it. For the Dreamcast, I do respect it, but I'm probably just going to put it in C tier, just because, again, there's a lot of games on here that I'm pretty sure I would like, but I've played most of them on other systems. The N64 means so much to me. It was the very first console I ever had, and I still remember to this day how I got it. My brother had an N64, and one day I went up to his room and he was just passed out. He was drinking a lot, and one night, I was just looking at it and I just asked, "Can I have it?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Whoa." So he gets up, he unhooks it, brings it downstairs to my room and hooks it up, and man, I was just having a blast with it. The first thing I played was WWF No Mercy, and oh man, I love that game. The wrestling games on the N64 are classic, especially WWF No Mercy, WWF WrestleMania 2000, and WCW NWO Revenge, and the WCW World Tour is pretty cool too. There's a ton of other cool wrestling games on the N64, but those four ones are like the must own if you are gonna collect for the N64. You also have Mario 64, Donkey Kong 64, Star Fox 64, Super Smash Bros. Started here, Mario Party started here, Mario Kart 64 is really cool, but I prefer Diddy Kong Racing over Mario Kart. GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, those are two classic games that I really do like. Banjo Kazooie, I reviewed that game last year, and it still comes to me every now and then. Like, I feel really nostalgic about that game, even though I've only played it about a year. I do have Banjo and Tooie though. Haven't played it, but I do look forward to playing that someday. And then you got The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask. I love Majora's Mask. It's a very dark game, but I think for me, I just prefer Ocarina of Time. That was the first Zelda game I ever beat, and I don't know, I really like the world building that Ocarina of Time set up. Yeah, Majora's Mask has a lot of more darker themes, and it definitely is more mature, and it's unique having no Ganon or Princess Zelda, at least besides a flashback. But yeah, I just preferred Ocarina of Time. But Star Fox 64, I do want to mention that one, as that was the very first video game I ever beat in my entire life, and I was so proud of myself. I remember every single day beating that game, and beating it multiple times, just going through the different planets and shit. Like, it's an easy game, but I was so proud of myself beating it by myself. I love the N64. It isn't perfect, though. There are quite a few games on there that are just crap, and unfortunately the controller, it isn't the best. I love the N64 controller, but I do understand where people are coming from when they say they just don't like it. But to me, I do really like the controller, and I love collecting for the system. It's such a fun console, and I really like the multicolor cards on it, and I love the multicolor consoles on the N64. I think that's pretty damn cool. For me, I'm going to put the N64 in A tier. It just has a lot of nostalgia for me. I want to put it in S tier, but I don't want too many things to be in S tier. But yeah, N64, awesome stuff. Love it. Still love it to this day. The Game Boy Advance is really cool. I remember getting my Game Boy Advance because my dad challenged me that if I could pass a spelling bee test, that he would go out and buy me a Game Boy SP. Now, the reason why is because I was living in a house with a bunch of cousins, and one of them had a Game Boy, and I would play on it a lot, but then he kind of got mad that I was playing on it, so we kind of, how kids are, we kind of got into a little fight about it, and I asked my dad about it, and he said that, if I can ace this test perfectly, he'll get it for me. And I remember studying so damn hard, and I eventually got the ace, and he was true to his word. I got a brand new Game Boy Advance SP, and the first game I got was Crash Orange. I know that game's not that great, but I was a huge Yu-Gi-Oh fan, and I got one of the Yu-Gi-Oh games. I believe it's Yu-Gi-Oh! Destiny of the Soul. I might be mistaking of the name of that one, but I played that game all the fucking time. And even one point in school, like, I would ride the bus to school. Playing the game, and on the way home, I would ask my bus driver to just take the long way, so I could just play the game on the bus. I was just addicted to that Yu-Gi-Oh game. It was so much fun. Mainly because I love the anime and stuff like that, and not a lot of people in my area played the game. I mean, there was quite a few, but we didn't have any opportunity to actually play it physically, so playing that game was my only way of playing Yu-Gi-Oh at the time. And of course, you got the Pokemon games. You got Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, Fire, Red, Leaf, Green. All great games. I played Emerald first, and to me, Emerald is the best of the Gen 3. Rayquaza is one of my favorite legendaries. I just think he's super badass. I'm not too familiar with this model right here. I mainly played the Game Boy SP, which had the backlight. And I much prefer that over this design here. It's not a bad design, but I just prefer the flip. I don't know why, but the flipping mechanic on that thing was just so cool. It reminded me of like a flip phone, and I thought that was so cool. I thought that was so innovative and stuff like that. And yeah, man, the Game Boy Advance is pretty fucking sweet, and I love it. So in terms of ranking it, I think I'm gonna put it in B tier. I love the system a lot, but I haven't played it in a very, very long time, so I don't know how my memory would be up to date with it, but I do have a lot of memories with the Game Boy Advance. I just wish this was the SP model, because, yeah, I like that model a lot. Up next, we have the PlayStation 4. Without a doubt, my favorite modern console. To me, the PS4 is the modern-day PS2. And what I mean by that is a lot of the exclusives are really fucking awesome. And you just have a bunch of games on the system, over 1,000 games, and collecting for it is just so much fun. And it reminds me a lot of the PS2. There's a ton of games, like Uncharted 4 is a great send-off to the Uncharted series. Infamous Second Son. It is a launch title, but that game kicks fucking ass. You got Control by Remedy, The Order 1886, Horizon Zero Dawn, Persona 5. There's just a ton of really awesome games on the PS4. And also, as a huge Resident Evil fan, I do say that if you ever want to get started on the Resident Evil franchise, the PS4 is the way to go, because it has Resident Evil 0 and the first remake on the Origins collection. You got Resident Evil 2 remake, you got Resident Evil 3 remake, you got ports of Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6, and then you got 7, which is awesome, and then you got 8. So you can get the first 8 Resident Evil games on the PS4. That is pretty fucking dope. You also got Resident Evil Revelations 1 and 2 on there, and that's pretty cool. You also got Spider-Man PS4, which is one of my favorite games of all time. That game kicks so much ass. I'm sure you can make the argument that a lot of the third-party games on the Xbox One are better than the PS4, but I don't care. Personally, like, PS4 is the way to go for me, and I just love this system so much. And that is why I'm going to put it up in A tier. It's not quite S tier yet. The only major problem I do have with it is the PlayStation Plus Games of the Month. Like, I'm just not a fan of how you have to have that to play those games. And sometimes the selection's kind of crap too. The PS Store is just not that great. But the PS4 is awesome. I love it to death. The PSP. Oh boy, what an underrated handheld. It is such a cool handheld. It's comfortable as hell. And it plays to me, when I first saw the system, I literally thought it was just a PS2 that was handheld. It was that advanced. Like, it was a real big fucking deal. You got the God of War games that look pretty damn cool on the system. Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core, which is so emotional. If you played Final Fantasy VII, you kind of know what happens to Zack, and what happens to Zack in Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core. It's such a sad game, but it is a really good prequel. And also you got Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 4 looking awesome on the system. Remake of the first Persona game, and we got Persona 2 Innocent Sins, which never made its way stateside on the PS1. It was only released on the PSP. You got the Lunar games, you got the Final Fantasy Tactics games. It is a really good system for RPGs, and I love it a lot. You got a really cool Killzone game on the PSP. My only issue with the PSP has to be the UMD. To me, UMD is just a little too weird, and you can really fuck up games easily with the UMD. And I just wasn't a big fan of that format. If they had used like cartridges or like mini discs or something like that, like, it would have been a lot better. Like, UMDs are technically mini discs, but you know what I mean. But yeah, the PSP is really awesome, and I hope people start collecting for it because it's pretty cheap. Last time I checked. Yeah, I don't have a PSP right now, so I probably should get one pretty soon. But from what I played on the PSP, awesome stuff. Oh, another game that's really good on the PSP is Burnout. Burnout is a awesome fucking racing franchise, and the Burnout game on the PSP is fucking fun. I highly recommend it. And you can watch movies on it, which is kind of cool. But I'm going to put it in B tier. Alright, we got a couple consoles left. I don't know why the 360 is on here again. But we're going to save the best for last. The Wii U. Oh man, do I have some opinions on this system. While at the time, as the Wii U was coming out, it was a really cool system. It had a bunch of really cool games. But for me, in 2022, I would much rather play those games on the Switch. Now, I'm sure that's an unpopular opinion, and I'm sure there's still some really cool Wii U games on here. But to me, I have nothing to play on the Wii U. Besides Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD. Other than that, man, there's not much. Like, the Switch has pretty much all of it, and you can make an argument that like it killed the Wii U, but the Wii U has its loyal fans, and you know what? That's awesome. I really hope a lot of people have tons of fun with their Wii U, but for me personally, I'm just going to play everything on the Switch. Now, the things I do like about the Wii U is I actually really like the gamepad controller. It's big, it's meaty, and the buttons feel nice, and it's really comfortable. But I hate the Wii U Pro controller. It's just the Xbox controller with the C button on top, and I don't know, putting the face buttons on the bottom just really feels weird. So if I ever do play the Wii U, my main's definitely going to be the gamepad. But sadly, I'm going to have to put the Wii U, no, not in F tier. I'm just going to put it in D tier. Sure, it's a great system for a lot of people, and when the time it was coming out, it was awesome, but yeah, I would just rather play a lot of these games on the Switch. Finally, we have the PlayStation 1. Now, for a lot of people, a lot of gamers, a lot of people probably started with the NES, but for me, my first gaming experience was the PS1. I remember one night going into my brother's room, sneaking in there while he was out with his friends, and he forgot to unhook the PS1 because he didn't want me to play at the time because he was a dick. But he left it hooked up, and the very first game that I wanted to play on there was Resident Evil. I don't know what it was. I think it was just the cover that intrigued me, and I put it in and I see the live action. I'm like, oh man, is this a movie? And I remember playing that and just being blown away that I'm moving the character. And I get to the first zombie and I just die. And that was like one of the most intense moments of my life. And unfortunately, he caught me, so I couldn't play further. But man, what a first way to play a video game. The PS1 just has the best library ever, in my opinion. There's so many great games on the system. Sure, you can make the argument that the PS1 is dated, but I think a lot of them still hold up, like Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, Silent Hill, Spyro 1, 2, and 3, Crash Bandicoot 1, 2, and 3. Tekken 3 is my favorite fighting game, and it's on the PS1. As an RPG lover, the PS1 has you covered. You got Wild Arms, Persona, Xenogears, Lunar, the Final Fantasy series, Saga Frontier, Star Ocean, and a bunch of other awesome PS1 RPGs. You also have Metal Gear Solid on the system. Next to Resident Evil, my favorite franchise is probably Metal Gear Solid. I love the first game, and the first Metal Gear Solid is still to this day my favorite Metal Gear game. I love the Alaska setting. I love everything about that game. Snake is just so badass. And you also have Castlevania Symphony of the Motherfucking Night. My favorite Castlevania game, and that game is fucking awesome. It literally does what Metroid does, but so much better in every single way. You got a great atmosphere, way better music, Alucard's a more interesting character. You got an awesome level design, and I love Castlevania way more than Metroid. As a huge wrestling fan, the SmackDown series started here, which was pretty fun. Sure, yeah, the SmackDown series would definitely get better on the PS2, but it did start on the PS1, and SmackDown 2, Know Your Role, is a pretty decent game. As for platformers, as I mentioned, the Spyro trilogy and the Crash Bandicoot trilogy. Well, you also got Jumping Flash. You got Rayman and Rayman 2, Jumping Flash, and a bunch of other games. Oh, and how can I talk about the PS1 without mentioning Dino Crisis and Parasite Eve? Two awesome fucking games. Dino Crisis is awesome. Regina is one of the best female characters in all of gaming. Same thing with Aya from Parasite Eve. Awesome game, awesome story, and awesome female characters. The PS1 is just, it's so fucking cool. Every time I get a really good PS1 game, I'm genuinely excited. So I have to do it. I have to put the PS1 in S tier. It is my favorite video game console of all time. Let me know down below what you thought of my tier list. If you want to do your own, I will put a link in the description below, and you can do one yourself. Also, if there's any other tier lists you want me to do, let me know, and maybe I'll do them.